Hello everyone, and welcome to this audio podcast. In this series, this series, the erudition of Colladax. This is a Colladax rupture. This is an audio podcast short and aligned to the Colladax feature and the Colladax feature 6. This is a chartered edition and an evidence-based perspective, and another Storm the Bostics production. Here, in this audio podcast, as part of this audio podcast, there will be an overview, in and around a statistics workshop, a statistics workshop that had taken place retrospectively. This is an audio podcast, sort of providing, highlighting a sort of a recall and reflection, in around this particular workshop that had taken place. So it was in around sort of a 2020, a point in 2020, where there was a basis in around this particular statistics workshop. There was a learning in around different statistical analyses and modalities going through a particular statistics workbook. There was some bases in around sort of hypothesis testing, confidence intervals, statistical significance, and several other statistical analyses. There was a learning that in around the statistics as a main in sort of all forms of in all sorts and bases of research, evaluation, and reporting. One of the bases in around works that had had been a basis at the same time, was where there was a sort of a priority, if you like, to make comparisons between traditional for example, traditional sort of techniques, or traditional techniques in around aspects of particular practices, around particular work practices in around sort of the in around sort of in around in around in around for example, using what have been referred to as Dorset boxes, versus sort of tech in around particular aspects of what has been referred to, or is referred to as particular medicines management in context of in context of particular work environs. Implementing in around this implementing descriptive statistics, there was a comparison across several focuses, including efficiency, time, ease of use, safety, and particular medicines alerts. There was a sort of a basis in around this and around this this particular as part of this particular workshop, but also as part of aspects of work where there was an informed sort of understanding in context of the tech, and in context of the tech, and how how in some regard it is or has it is sort of user friendly, and sort of meets the requirements of particular aspects of service and economy. There was a decision to implement, as part of the sort of this the as part of this particular workshop, in around statistics, or the statistics workshop, as well. There was a basis in around a decision to implement a particular reflective model, a reflective model as part of this particular workshop. So there was a decision to implement Atkins and Murphy's model from 1993, and Rolfe and team's sort of framework for reflexive learning from 2001. Um, here, um, here there was a basis to there was a basis in around, for example, Atkins and Murphy's model from 1993. The model prompted a sort of a link and awareness directly relating to research that was being sort of conducted in context in context of in around tech, and work in around projects or works, sort of in around projects and works, sort of outside of my immediate sort of outside of my immediate sort of in around my not in around my immediate knowledge base. So, for example, linking online data collection, and for analyses. In around this, sort of two sort of collaborators that uh, 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 that that in around this in around part of this works at the time, at the time was is where I thought it would be, there was a thought that it would be pertinent or pivotal to explore action focusing on sort of on sort of uh, 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 action at looking at particular aspects of disease, in context of population health, as well as a focus on what aspects of medicines and context of what medicines and safety, can could be a sort of could be sort of explored at the time. There was discussions also that led to sort of co-developing particular questions, which would be which then could also be a part of the part of the work basis or the work environment at the time, and again in linking in line to the statistics workshop that had taken place retrospectively, and then where this could form a basis of, for example, a collaborative paper publication, a collaborative sort of paper publication, and also where there was an envisage of of presenting particular works at a particular conference, and how that the opportunity would serve would well, how the opportunity how the opportunity to present particular works and research would be of opportunity as well. At the same time, there was a sort of a sense of enthusiasm in around this particular statistics workshop as well, to sort of to help to also to also build on particular aspects of the of particular skill base or skill base in context of research, and developing aspects in context of an investigator and a researcher. One of the challenges was ensuring that, for example, that in line to the research at the time, and in line to the workshop as well, was where one of the challenges was that to ensure that any research presentation conveys a particular aspect of academic scholarship. So it was in around May 2019 that an abstract was put forward to align to a particular remit, and the abstract had been accepted in June 2019. However, at the same time, the works that had been put forward was not immediately specific to aspects of the work in aligned to tech. In line to tech, the work was aligned to another aspect. That being said, as well, the part of the reflection was, although in some contexts that some aspects of research was being done in aligned to aspects of the time aligned to, for example, the work that was as part of the time, or within the same time as some of the aspects of the of works within industry or within tech. There was no negative implication. There was no negative implication in context of the statistics, or statistical data or data sets, for example, that were for example, used sort of in any sort of abnormal sort of basis. It was more in around this in this in as part of this sort of as part of the statistics workshop. There was a learning and a sort of a learning and a reflection in how, for example, how particular data sets could be integrated or linked, so that although, for example, where data sets from one particular project, for example, could be might be for example insubstantiated, and yet another data set may have may have a sort of a substantial basis in around particular data, but the workshop, the statistic workshop was a basis where where there was a learning in around the different how different data sets can be linked, could be linked into one particular sort of one particular project or project basis. Um, for example, and so the using the Atkins and Murphy sort of model from 1993 provided opportunity to sort of adapt and sort of change and sort of develop certain works. Um, it was at the same time the sort of the reflective model from Atkins and Murphy's model in 1993 also allowed a basis to learn how it was important to take a particular lead in aspects of works as well. Presenting works are having collected data from works that was separate from for example particular initial aims and objectives. um, the uh, the works that had been put forward aligned to have been put forward in context of an abstract and towards a particular conference remit in again in May 2019, and where the research abstract was accepted in June 2019. Using the Atkins and Murphy's model from 1993 also offered opportunity to share knowledge, to share knowledge and disseminate knowledge in context of an academic network. The research presentation highlighted that there have been recurring time constraints. For example, in particular areas, in a particular area of medicine and a particular aspect of a particular specialty. At the same time, attending the statistics workshop also helped helped sort of prompted and sort of sort of prompted a basis where 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 there was a sort of opportunity to present sort of statistics works where sort of where there had been a thought that owing to the data set owing to the data set that had been had been aligned to sort of retrospective works, there was a basis where at least initially where the data in part was not may not would not have been or may not have been viable to present at a particular within a particular conference remit. However, however, the having learned the plat the this particular conference platform or platform was where data in around a particular aspect a particular aspect of practice um, was was an opportunity was sought as an opportunity to present some descriptive data descriptive data, um, and there was within as part of this there was opportunity to convey that was particular, particular service users in context of healthcare use for example the internet, use the internet for resource that at the same time can lead to misinformation, and thus service users service users in around particular aspect aligned to a particular aspect of service provision, do not have, for example, an appropriate sort of resource pathway. And so this has been a recurring theme throughout particular aspects of research. And so this workshop in around statistics help focus sort of a particular perspective around the statistical analyses aligned to research that had been taking place sort of retrospectively in around and during that time. The data that had been presented was aligned to works that was on behalf of the renal patient support group, the RPSG, and where for at least in around 6 months, data had been analyzed through describing particular statistics, through describing the data set in around particular use of statistics, and the research would help to explore the data, sought to explore or highlight perspectives regarding a basis in around prompting sort of educational support for those for service users suffering with for example chronic kidney disease, and also where there was a basis in around identifying sort of an underpinning basis, if you like, in around particular aspects of disease and laboratory investigations and test parameters from the understanding by service providers through the renal patient support group, the RPSG, by gaining sort of perspectives from a descriptive analysis approach or perspective from an online social media platform sample of service users. So the the statistics workshop that had taken place sort of retrospectively in 2020 was useful in this regard, and again using the Atkins and Murphy's model from 1993 was good and helped prompt a basis in aspects in line to the reflection that took place during that time during the time. that closes this audio podcast. This audio podcast short in line to the erudition of Colladax. This has been a Colladax rupture and a audio podcast short in line to the Colladax feature 6. This has been a chartered edition and another evidence-based perspective, and once again another Storm Robotics production.